We all love to live well. Advanced care planning is about living well for as long as we can live for. In this program, we're going to look at a family who goes through the process of making an advanced care plan, a process which just consists principally of talking to each other. So it's not rocket science, it's not very difficult to do. You just go through the process. Anybody could do this without much help from anybody else. But they do all the important things. They talk to each other, they clarify who's going to make decisions, and they clarify what kinds of things to decide on. Sooner or later, we're all going to get sick, and we'll lose our capacity to make our decisions. So it does make a lot of sense for people to talk about this in advance, to talk about who to make the decisions and what sorts of decisions they want to make, and we call that process advanced care planning.
We didn't know he had cancer when he went into hospital, but during the time he was there, he made it quite clear that he wanted a big funeral.
So you were able to talk about that?
We did talk about it because we knew he was going to die and we faced it. Nan didn't. I went down. Nan stayed at home. Nan didn't come to the funeral.
Yeah, I get called down here on a regular basis, several times a day, to see people who are desperately sick. And what I'm saying is you must try to plan in advance for that. It's no time to do it now. If you're planning in advance, then we know what it is you want, we know who we need to talk to, and that's the most useful thing that you can do.
I think the main reason you should make an advanced care plan or have plans in place for your future is you don't know what's going to happen. And a prime example is I was an able seaman in the Navy, went down a water slide, broke my neck, became a quadriplegic. So my whole life changed in a split second. So there were plans in place for the Navy, what they were going to do. They got my family over, and then we made plans on how to get me back to Australia. And so basically my whole life I spent planning what to do, and an advanced care plan in regards to dying or living is just part of my life.
Advanced care planning is pretty straightforward. First of all, it's a question of understanding what's wrong with you. So the most important thing is to understand your own illness and where it might go and what sorts of decisions your family may have to make. So we call that health literacy. The second step really is to have a conversation about your health and your future with your family. It's a very positive thing to do. This is not about doom and gloom. This is actually about saying what matters to you, what things about your life that you really enjoy, the sorts of things you'd like to do more of, and how to maximise that through the future, even when you start to get sick and old, of course. The third element of it is to try and make sure that you get some sort of record of that if you can. A conversation's great, make sure you talk to the right people, but if you wanted to make some kind of record of what your preferences are, then that's helpful to people if we come to a situation in the future. Another thing you can do is to actually appoint somebody as your guardian, in other words, somebody to be the actual spokesperson for you in the event that anything happens. And probably the most important final part of that is to try and make sure that if you do write something down or if you do have some sort of plan, that you have that available and that you can bring that with you, or that somebody will know where to find that in the event that something happens to you.
My mum's got an advanced care plan, my sister, my brother-in-law, my dad, I have. I've got mates who've got them as well. But it's not what we talk about. We don't sit down and go, we're dying or whatever. We talk about living and the holidays that we're going to have and the fun we're having. And so it's in place to protect us and look after us. But also, we're looking after each other and we love each other. So we discuss the good things in life and what we're doing with our lives and where our lives are going, what's happening. We don't talk about the negatives of which is dying, but in the event that someone does, there are plans in place, advanced care plans in place, so that our wishes can be met.
Yeah, an advanced care plan helps you and your family in a number of different ways, and particularly so when you're reaching a point in your life where you're getting very old and frail, and maybe where you may be reaching your final illness. This is where advanced care plans become most helpful. The ways that it helps is that it gives your own voice space when we have our discussions. It gives your family a guide as to what should be said and what options we talk about. Many people couldn't imagine what treatments are available, and therefore we really need to know something about who you are as a person and what sorts of things you value, and try and take that into account when we try to tailor the treatment according to what we think you would have wanted. So for you as an individual, an advanced care plan is a great help because it makes sure that you get the kinds of treatment that most likely you would have wanted for yourself.
When I had my stroke, what happened, Liz and Ken went for a week's holiday to Surfers Paradise, and because I can't be here on my own, I went up to stay with my husband. And the second day I was there, I didn't feel right. Anyway, the third day I was up there, I felt very queer, and I started to say to him, "Oh, Roy, I don't feel well." And I just couldn't speak. So fortunately, he phoned the ambulance came, I went into hospital, but I wasn't the least bit frightened because I knew that even though I couldn't speak, Roy knew exactly what I wanted. And when I went in, Roy showed the doctor the red book and pointed. He was familiar with the books, and he knew that in the back was all my wishes, exactly what I wanted. So I wasn't the least bit scared. Again, communicate. Let people know what you want. And my husband knew exactly what to do.
If you've got an advanced care plan in place, it lessens the burden on those you leave behind. As I get older, my health is going to deteriorate, and I don't want people saying, what does Bob want? Especially if I'm incapacitated and I can't communicate my wishes. It's nice that they're already being documented what I want and what I deem to be quality of life, and it just makes life easier for everyone. So if you've got an advanced care plan, it's a great thing. It helps everybody concerned, and it relieves a lot of the burden on those people that you love and that love you.
The outcomes of not having a plan can be disastrous for families. Absolutely disastrous. They can end up with not only family dysfunction, but in fact families torn apart so that they don't communicate ever again after it's happened over something that, if it had been planned and discussed, would not have occurred. Both in my professional as a community health nurse and personally, I have seen families completely change, the dynamics change, and unfortunately they've worsened because no plans have been made when a tragedy of some sort, not necessarily a death, but a tragedy of some sort has been made or has occurred, and the family have not had any plan in place to decide what was the case. If they haven't discussed them, often conflict occurs, fights occur, and families are torn apart. And this is a time when families should be together, nurturing and caring and loving one another. And it is so simple. It may be hard, may be difficult, may be in denial, but if you can't do it openly with open communication, a bit of laughter, then write it down. Write down what you want so that there is no conflict at the time when people should be gathering together to grieve and grieve with one another with love and affection. You want to take it out of their hands?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
I don't, because, I don't think it would happen in our family. I'd be staggered if it did. But at the end of the day,
I wouldn't be staggered at all.
Bob's family are a good example of what is possible and easily achievable, not just something that needs a lawyer and stuff like that. This family talk to each other, and that's the single difference that makes the single thing that makes the most difference is to talk to each other. So now we know from them who it is that they want us to talk to, and we know that those people have spoken to each other, and therefore that they understand each other's point of view.
Well, advanced care planning to me is about choice. It's about making preparation for your life, a healthy life, a quality life, whether it be young or old. Don't wait for a crisis like we had with Bob, where he was a young man and had to make some choices about what he wanted. But he had a plan in action, and that plan's shown that he's able to do a lot more than we ever anticipated. For my mum and dad, their plan is that they want quality now and quality at the times of their death.
Well, here in intensive care, everybody's basically on life support. The need now for somebody to speak for you has become a legal question now. It's not just that we would like to have somebody to speak for you, now we actually legally have to have somebody to speak for you. So we have what we have to call a substitute decision maker, which goes by different names in different territories and states in Australia. But we need consent now to do things. So we have to have consent to do minor operations on you, to put in lines and put you on breathing machines. And now we have, legally, we're required to have somebody to speak for you. As I say, the choice we're faced with is either long-term life support or to go for basically palliative care, I would say at this stage. I don't think off that breathing machine that he'll survive. In the absence of a plan, We spend a lot of time, first of all, trying to work out who it is that is your substitute decision maker. And there are various legislation things that we have to go through to find out who that is. And then if we find somebody who's prepared to decide for you, then we have to basically put to them the choices that are there and try to get them to make that decision.
I think they'd all be happy to see him comfortable rather than on a machine.
This was the offer I was going to make, is what we would call comfort care or palliative care.
Will he come off that machine?
He will, but I don't think he'll breathe well enough for himself to survive long term. I think he may only survive for perhaps a matter of hours or days at the most, I think.
Is there something that can help him?
But if she had an offer of resuscitation, which Julie now thinks, all right, she's alive, but she's not.
No quality of life.
No, and she's got this massive head injury. So she would have been better off dying,
Yeah.
and they have the lovely memory of what she was, not what she is now.
I don't know if you can say that, but because you always hope that it's going to get better.
Well, a lot of people who are in intensive care wouldn't want all the things done that are possible. We know that at least half the people in here probably don't want everything that we can possibly do. We don't know which half. We don't know which they won't want. So there is the opportunity for a lot of debate, discussion and dispute about what sorts of treatments to offer people and what not.
The worst thing that could happen would be for me to have a stroke, not be able to talk, not be able to move, and just still be alive.
What advanced care planning isn't just saying no. It's actually saying yes to who you are and to what you value. So make a plan to make the most out of your life. An advanced care plan is a plan that makes the most of your life.
Advanced care plan does make sense. We're living our lives, we're going on holidays, we're doing what normal people do. We just happen to have discussed the advantages of having an advanced care plan, and it makes good common sense. It's not something we discuss every time we get together. We discuss our holidays, what's happening, work, careers, etc. But it's something we do discuss on a fairly regular basis, a couple of times a year, to make sure that the advanced care plan's in place and our wishes are met. But at the moment, we're all busy living and having a good time, making the most of things, making the most of getting out my boat, making the most of going diving and swimming and having fun, living life.